Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Yeah. Thanks to everyone watching on our live stream as well. I am Becky, the Executive Director of the Hawaii International Film Festival. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here. This is such an amazing talk that we have set up. HIFF is still going on virtually through November 28th, so be sure to check out all of the amazing panels and films that we have online at watch.hiff.org. We have over 200 films available. 86% are available nationwide, which is really exciting. But this weekend, and what this event is kicking off here tonight, is our virtual reality XR new media exhibit. Yeah. This is the 4th year that we've done this. It's a really, really incredible part of HIFF. It's free every single year to attend. So tell all your friends about it. We have amazing guests here tonight that I'm not going to introduce right now, but I am going to bring up the incredible programmer of the 2021 HIFF XR program, Nina Lin. She put together an amazing program with incredible projects, 13 projects available at Entrepreneur Sandbox this weekend. She put together this panel and more projects available online. So Nina, kick it. Oh, and Anderson, who's going to moderate the panel, HIFF's artistic director as well. Nina and Anderson, come on up.
Thank you, Becky. Aloha, everybody. Again, Nina Lin here. So excited to see all of you here. Thank you for coming and joining us via live stream. I am so excited for this opportunity to introduce 2 amazing artists that I am just blown away by and I greatly admire. First of all, Sutu. We have Sutu here. Come on down, Sutu. Sutu is a digital artist and storyteller from Tasmania. Currently based in Los Angeles, he has been commissioned by some of the most influential companies such as Marvel, Google, and Disney to create VR art for properties such as Doctor Strange and Ready Player One. He has also created a number of VR documentaries and is known for his interactive comics, which you'll get to enjoy here tonight as well. Sutu holds an honorary doctorate of digital media from Central Queensland University. He is a 2017 Sundance Fellow and is the co-founder of iJack, which is a augmented reality company. So we're thrilled to have you here and showcasing 3 of your pieces here at HIFF this year, The Girl in the Crane, Modern Polaxis, and Brianna's Garden. So thank you, Sutu, for being here. And I'm also excited to introduce to you all Juliana Loh, who is here with us virtually from Vancouver. Juliana specializes in spatial design and art. She is a VR world builder for social spaces, a XR prototype designer, and an interactive VR artist using Google Tilt Brush. Outside of HIFF 2021, her work has been featured in other international platforms such as Burning Man VR 2021, Vancouver International Film Festival, and QLD XR festivals. So we're so excited to showcase 3 of her works: The Blue Boat, Awaken the Giants, Sinisteria, and Big Orange Fish. So representing the inspiring nexus of innovation, art, and storytelling, Sutu and Juliana have been selected for HIFF's very first XR Artist Spotlight program. Their creative influence across international communities in the fields of new media compels us to look out into the future and embrace the invigorating change that comes from a fusion of ever-improving technology, immersive artistry, and boundless creativity. As visionary world builders, their work empowers and inspires a new generation of artists and storytellers that get to shape brilliant and emergent new realities. So please join me in welcoming Sutu and Juliana Loh.
Mic on now? Okay, it is on now. Thank you. Again, my name is Anderson Lay. I'm the artistic director for the festival. I'll be moderating this panel with Sutu and Juliana, and I'll be moderating from a point of ignorance. because this is a very new space for me, and it's going to be very educational for me. So please forgive my many dumb questions, but I think we're also going to have a lot of like questions from the audience as well, and also live streaming. If you have any questions, we're probably going to just leave them in the comment section if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll pop them up on the screen and be able to help to answer them with our esteemed guests. So first of all, I'll start with Sutu since you're here. Welcome to Hawaii.
Mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo. Tell me about, well, first of all, this will go to Juliana as well. I mean, we're talking about kind of your upbringing, the kind of small kid time, like when you were a child, and then you going into art. I mean, let's talk about before you going into the whole world of AR and NFTs and whatnot. So just talk about your artistic journey as a kid.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Tasmania, so a little island off the south of Australia. It was quite remote, but it had beautiful nature. It's kind of reminiscent of this place, but less tropical. But yeah, we had a lot of like rainforest to explore, and I lived on the beach as well. So I was always like going to the beach and having little adventures and spending a lot of time outside, kind of creating worlds, I guess, in my mind. So there was always that sort of play aspect to my upbringing, like play and like role playing and that kind of thing. I was drawing from a young age. I think my first comic book that I did was Revenge of the Ninja Babies.
Okay.
I did that in grade 5 and sold it to a kid in grade 4 for $5. I don't know why it's Revenge of. It suggests that there was a episode 1, but I clearly just jumped into episode 2.
Right.
And then, yeah, I just kept on drawing. I got into like cultures like, skateboarding, rollerblading, things like this, which all had a strong design aesthetic to them.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people that are into like that sort of grow up in these types of countercultures, they often become an inlet into art. So through the skateboard designs and the magazines and the video edits that come out, it's like a really great inlet into media.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like my first one of my first jobs was designing skateboards and snowboards and stuff.
Right.
But then really around the early 2000s, I got obsessed with Flash, which was like online interactive web.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I grew up in Tasmania, feeling very disconnected from the rest of the world and very envious of what was happening. So I was really spending a lot of time online and just teaching myself how to make websites and stuff like that. And then also dying to get out and explore the world. So I left pretty young and moved to the mainland. We say the mainland.
Right. Sure.
And then
to Sydney or where?
I moved to Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Yeah, so Melbourne
that's the coolest city in Australia, apparently, right?
Arguably.
Yes.
I later lived in the desert in northern Western Australia in a town of 1,000 people, which I would argue is pretty cool and probably cooler.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's subjective.
Right.
But yeah, I think Melbourne has a good design community for sure. Like they've got a bit of a reputation for that. So there's a really good indie spirit as well, and supportive sort of spirit of supporting artists and that type of thing. But yeah, I think with the web stuff especially, it was a time where there was a lot of, it was kind of the beginning of sort of that tutorialization of art.
Right.
Like a lot of people starting to share how they did things online. Which is really big now. Like I come across like 13-year-old geniuses all the time. They just say like I watched 1,000 hours of YouTube to learn how to use all these programs and stuff. But I think that helped a lot.
The DIY kind of maker community that was kind of the beginning of that era, right?
I think for the online digital stuff.
Yes.
And the problem also was that the universities couldn't really keep up with the technologies, which is still the case.
Sure.
And often now I'm in a position where I'll get called in as a person to give a lecture series or design some courses or do stuff like that, just so that we can bring the cutting edge, whatever is the cutting edge of the moment, to the students who are all eager for it, because it takes ages to create these courses. So all these institutions are leaning more on experts to come in and provide that content so that they are perceived as staying up to date.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Juliana, how about you? How did your artistic journey begin?
So thanks. It's really great to meet you, Anderson and Sutu. Whoa, to begin with, aloha. So
aloha.
I grew up I'm from Malaysia, so I'm sort of first generation. I we moved over to a city that was like 5 hours north of Toronto. So if you know where Toronto is, we're really far up, and we had a lot of like -40, -50 weather. So it was really cold, and it was a little bit isolated from, you know, the world and everything. But it's really lucky because I have a twin sister. And so we used to spend a lot of time, you know, just figuring out how to write stories together. You know, we had so many adventures because we had the 4 seasons. We had, you know, winter, summers, you know, fall. And so that offered a really nice backdrop to all the things that we were doing in our imagination land. So I think one of my earliest memories actually was capturing bees and insects and all sorts of little creatures. And we put them in a jar, and we, like, you know, you punch holes in them, and they would be my metaverses. You know, they would be like the metaverses of old, I suppose. And we'd line them all up, and we'd call them different places, and we'd create our own imaginary world. So that's a little bit of my background. And I think one of the really cool things about growing up like in an area where there was so much winter was that we could kind of hang out with the different nationalities there, or the predominant one was actually French Canadian, English, and Finnish. So it was our first jump into European culture, and it was great. We had the best time. So that's what it was.
And then, so I mean, for Sutu, like, you know, you were kind of going to you're now based in Melbourne, and then you're, you know, creating art, especially influenced by kind of the subcultures you were in. Did you continue onward with schooling and whatnot? Like, how did you kind of, aside from watching a lot of tutorials and like figuring it all out online?
Yeah, I did about 1.5 years of studying, and then I was kind of like, I was a smart ass and was like, I know enough. I'll teach myself everything else online and
Right.
that sort of thing. I did have some really good teachers and mentors though at the school that I have to credit. You know, I think anyone that has like that sort of equaled enthusiasm and passion, when you meet those people, especially as educators, you really got to, you know, just take heed and go, wow, this is an incredible opportunity I have.
Mm-hmm.
And also in those education spaces, it's just a great opportunity to collaborate. Like,
Right.
even though we can be as an individual like quite pig-headed, and we're quite determined to find our own art style, and we feel like it's a solo journey.
Right.
But, you know, every time I get into these kind of classrooms and have to do talks, I was like, you know, forget all that shit. It's not true. You don't want to live in a silo. You want to reach out. You want to absorb each other's creative energy. You want to experiment. Now's the time to experiment. Do as much as you can. Don't feel like you have to stick to one thing. You know, try a lot of stuff out. Like right now, it's a good time to do it. And then you will, through that experimentation, find some things that click with you. And they it's like Velcro, you know, it sort of sticks on you and you carry it with you for a while.
Right.
So that was what was happening to me. But I loved the collaboration part, but I was also quite pig-headed as well. So there's a certain element of discipline as well that you have to kind of harness.
Were you butting heads because of institutions in a way, or?
Oh yeah, I remember one of the stupidest courses was like I had to design a stairway banister, and I was like, I quit. I don't want to. This is the most like creative like coffin, like nail in the coffin for me right now. This just does not ignite my brain whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that this was the end for education for me. I was like, if this is the best like course you can come up with, then I'm out. Like, I'm tapping out. So yeah, but then thankfully, like, some different teachers came in and they gave some more exciting assignments that really triggered the imagination. But also, I think it was also really important to have introductions to masters of their arts. So like I had a teacher, for example, show me early on like the artworks of Katsuhiro Otomo, the creator of Akira, and I was just like, you know, I was like seeing that stuff at a young age. And then that led me into reading Neuromancer by William Gibson. And then I went off on a sci-fi cyberpunk bender for years. Right. But I was like, when you kind of just need to plant that seed in young people's mind, especially if you know this is the person that is just going to go like one cultural reference like that can take someone so far. Yeah. So I think that's really important. Like, to listen to your students, kind of figure out what their interests are, And then if you do have a lot of experience and have been watching and paying attention to pop culture over the decades, then, you know, find that person that could be compatible with their interests, and then just, you know, give them a nudge.
I mean, Juliana, this is a good jumping off point. It's a good segue. You know, Sutu talked about like you know, kind of these masters of like, you know, William Gibson or Otomo. Like, you know, you mentioned basically kind of like in this, you know, creating these metaverses and whatnot. So can you talk about, because you in your bio talked about world building and working in that space. Can you just kind of, what is your kind of philosophy behind that, and how did you get into kind of that kind of concept of, you know, kind of three-dimensional thinking, so to speak, when it comes to world building, narrative, and whatnot?
I think, well, I also had to teach at the university level. My education was very formal. So, you know, I remember my mom and dad saying, "Oh, you have to be a lawyer or a doctor or something." And I was like, "No, I want to be an artist." And that didn't go over too well. But, you know what? You have to follow your dream, and you have to follow, like, I really believe that everybody has a mission to jump into when they're here, and to evolve and to share at some point. And so I knew that from a very early age. So, you know, I did gaming my background is brand entertainment and gaming, and, you know, some of these other design, entertainment, and world building and so forth. So it wasn't such a stretch. I was mentored actually by fine artists. So I have a history of understanding the context and the concepts and the contextualization of, you know, some of the broad movements that have brought us here today. So I guess when, you know, when we were looking at, okay, so what's coming up next, it wasn't such a stretch actually to go from, you know, 2D and then 3D, you know, Web 2.0 to actually what we're doing right now, which is, you know, trying to figure out how to create like emotional elements and story narrative within a metaverse structure that celebrates media in so many different ways today. So, like, I mean, for example, like, I don't know whether you saw this or not, but Justin Bieber Canadian, by the way, you know, he played, you know, yesterday on Wave XR, and, you know, it was phenomenal. You know, and we, you know,
shout out to
yo.
Could I quickly shout out Brenda Chan, a friend of mine who's only 25, and she directed Justin Bieber's first virtual concert, which is like huge,
I saw that.
Huge achievement for her.
Yeah, wow. Shout her out too. Yeah, for sure. And, you know, Ariana Grande was in Fortnite, right? So we have had like all of these innovative processes with mocap and the different technologies that have come aboard. So I would marry the past, the context of what has happened. How does a company feel about, you know, their brand? How do you create that brand around the experience that one has to design within that metaverse? And really, the word metaverse is just an expression of integrating so many different points of view and media together to create a world that, you know, you can fully immerse in.
Yeah, I think for regarding metaverses, we hosted something on GatherTown last night with a bunch of college students, and you know, overhearing some of the chatters like, this is like a bad Discord but in Hotel GABA. I don't understand what that means, but anyway, that was just, never mind. Anyway, so I mean, talk about Sutu, like, talk about what was the turning point for you to, I mean, what was the one piece of a work or maybe series of works that got you noticed and got you, like, you know, jumping into from, you know, just being creative, and but actually kind of that turning point of actually making it into a career?
I think so for me, like I said before, I was spending way too much time on the internet, and I had influences like William Gibson and Katsuhiro Otomo, and I was like convinced that I was going to create the next Akira, but it wasn't going to be Akira. It was going to be kind of like Blade Runner meets Clerks.
Okay.
If you remember that.
Yeah, sure.
Because like I had a sense of humor. And so I created I started off drawing it as a comic book because I was just like so obsessed with Akira.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just didn't feel right, the format, because I was spending so much time online. And I was like, because when you're online, you know, you'll be reading through text, you'll like look at images, you might click on a video, you click on a hyperlink, you go to another website. Through that journey of clicking, going from here to there to the next thing, you've absorbed all of these pieces of media that become your narrative journey. And I was like, oh, I want to like take that whole experience and pull it into one website. So that was like what my Knowles comic became. And it was like the first of its kind, like full on interactive web series, won a Webby Award. I had like 300,000 subscribers every month for a period there. It wasn't making a cent. Like it was like right now it would have been totally kick-ass because we would have had the NFT revolution financing this thing. But back then it was like I'd sell a couple of t-shirts every couple of months or whatever. And it was just like I was like, saying to someone today, I was like, I couldn't even afford to pay rent during that time. It was like so weird. But that was kind of that was like my first kind of sort of welcoming into, hey, your world building, your interactive media project is accepted and appreciated and supported. So you keep going with it. I haven't sort of looked back since then.
Juliana, how about you? What was the turning point for you to making it into a career? Was it going in right into the corporate world and branded content, or were you doing stuff?
It was like, I mean, I spent a lot of years, you know, branding, you know, Procter and Gamble, like Huggies, you know, brands, right, basically. And then I got into like I worked for a real estate company, and you know, back in the 90s, it was a pretty long time ago, and they were pretty interesting. I mean, they gave me carte blanche, really. They just said, okay, well, we want, and back then, you know, HTML was it. That's all we had, HTML and maybe a few images and so forth. And they just said, okay, well, figure out a way to get people online. But nobody knew how to get online. So, you know, I created this, you know, science lab, and I created this educational feature and this like tour guide into like the real estate place. And I just, you know, created this crazy world. And it was pretty neat because people really, to be honest, I don't think we had one person visit, but that wasn't the point. I think it was just a matter of like looking at the possibilities of, you know, what the new media could bring. And so I think that was one of the cool things that happened early on. But then, you know, after that, there were so many other different campaigns that I worked on, like fishing and you know, even more education and like games and translating, you know, even lottery games into like actual, you know, experiences that actually encapsulated the emotional feel of that. So, you know, that kind of got me excited about, okay, well, I think what we really need more is story's great, but we actually have to figure out what the emotionality of a situation could be, and how do you create that like in an immersive environment. And then, but I was late though. I was late to the XR community and artistry and so forth. A couple of things happened to me that you know, and things turn your life around many times, sometimes even upside down. So the funny thing is I went to the Michelangelo exhibit that they were having here in Vancouver this morning, and I saw, you know, images of the Sistine Chapel with, you know, his works all over the place. And ironically, you know, I jumped on aboard, you know, XR because I saw a 360 image of the Sistine Chapel in 2016. Now, I wasn't able to pursue actual like you know, rendering and tilt brush and so forth until 2019 because, you know, circumstances moved my life in a different direction. But I think I represent the kind of person who's just, you know, learning something for the first time and saying, it doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter what your background is, you can do it.
Right. I mean, 2019, I mean, in this space, it's like, that's like probably like a decade ago, because it's always constantly changing, right? So,
and I remember you being pretty big in the whole sort of tilt brush scene. Kind of, I feel like you were there from day one as well. Like in this small community, it was always like Juliana popping up. So, yeah.
Sutu,
yeah, go ahead, Juliana.
I just wanted to say, like, what a pleasure it is to be on this panel with you too, because I think part of the responsibility of the pioneers is to be able to, you know, share some of the secrets and some the successes, and then the not so great successes as well too. So pretty cool.
Right. Sutu, I mean, you talked about like kind of your inspirations in Ultimo, like Akira or like Cyberpunk and whatnot, and then you also worked in the branded content world when it comes to working with these like Marvel, Google, and Disney. They're like basically the major dream factories when it comes to kind of the center of culture today, right? How is it working with them in this corporatized structure in a way, like, you know, because these are, you know, just very high profile IP, you know, and then essentially, you know, this is kind of and then working and navigating through that, and like, were your ideas accepted, or was it very you know, can you talk about that? Was it very restrictive in that way, or were you able to just really kind of like go balls to the wall and just recreate what you want to do?
Yeah, usually there's a lot of limitations, and they make you sign contracts and say that you're not allowed to talk about all these things. And then they don't, and then they might not show you much stuff. Like I only got to see the Doctor Strange trailer. I didn't even get to watch the whole film before I had to create all this content. And then the same with Ready Player One. It was like a big negotiation with them about what content I was allowed to use. They had the rights to Midway arcade games from the 80s. And I was a big fan of like that retro, like that that first kind of wave of graphic design and art styles. So I was like, oh, there was like about 15 on the team. I was like, give me Midway. I'll take all of that. You guys do whatever else you want. I just want the Midway stuff. So I ended up recreating all of these really cool like Midway. I went through the whole catalog, just spent freaking 2 weeks just like going through the catalog, picking out all these cool references, reconstructed this whole like 3D world of navigating through this awesome, kind of look like neon signs sort of thing. So thankfully they let me use all of that. I had my other buddy, he got Dungeons and Dragons, and so many things that he created was struck down. They're like, oh no, you can't show that. Like they literally just let him show the dragon at the end, and that was about it.
Was it because of the limitations of the IP that was able to? Okay, got it.
And everything was happening in real time, and they were like, I'd create something, and then I'd deliver like 20 things, and then they were like, you can use 19 of them, and then I'd strike some off. And it's because we had to keep creating because we had a limited time frame. So that part of it was kind of exciting and frustrating. But I mean, ultimately, when you work on these big high-profile jobs, like my career just kind of went, you know, from nowhere, like you know, a small XR community knowing about me to like lots more people, and also it had a snowball effect where I got to work on a lot more Hollywood properties. So and then like Juliana mentioned before, Justin Bieber's virtual concert. I also worked at the same company that does those virtual concerts. So Brenda, who's directed Justin Bieber's, I worked alongside her on John Legend's virtual concert and The Weeknd's virtual concert. And the same process, like for The Weeknd, I was a senior artist on that, and I pitched a lot of crazy ideas. I was kind of surprised that Abel was turning them back, because he's kind of a crazy artist. But yeah, some of them got through. And sometimes, like, you pitch a crazy idea. Like I had this like I wanted to replace his head for like a big eel head. You know, like that scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where they're checking into the hotel and it's a big eel head. Because he had like a Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas theme going on with his concert. Like, you got to have the eel, and then I wanted to have like eel backup dancers, and then it didn't go for the eel, but later on, Dylan Francis came along, and he loved the eel idea, and he's got it's kind of different sense of humor, and so at one point, someone actually paid $100 inside the virtual concert to change Dylan Francis' avatar head to an eel head. And then Dylan Francis stops what he's doing in the middle of his concert. He's like, "Oh, I'm a goddamn eel!" Whoa! And he's waving his head around like this. So that was like one of my proud moments, in my career.
So I mean, for these virtual concerts, were they always in the works, or was it because of COVID? And then you know, kind of what that space kind of basically took it over, and you saw the possibilities of doing of adding all these layers and, you know, things to the virtual concert format.
I mean, this is a really weird thing to say, but like COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise for the digital industry, because everyone started to turn their focus on the screens. It was a huge year for the company Wave that was designing these virtual concerts. We did, I mean, the Weeknd concert was a partnership with TikTok. It was their first time to host a virtual concert. So we had like 1 million people tuning in for the live stream. and we raised about $330,000 towards the Black Lives Matter movement because that was happening.
Yep.
Like, it was such a crazy year last year.
Yeah.
And same with the John Legend one, we raised a couple $100,000 for his own charity. And it was just because like everyone was in like starving for, you know, digital content, looking for good quality stuff, looking and very what I loved about it was like because people were spending time at home, you know, they had the time to just kind of try out new things, especially in the digital world.
Right.
So we were doing a lot of experiments with the way that people interacted with virtual concerts, like typing in different emojis during the live streams and chats and stuff, and that would trigger different visual effects to happen. So the audience was actually having visual influence on what was happening in real time in the concert, stuff like that. But yeah, I think just that idea that that people were focusing more on digital content had a huge boost for our whole industry. And it kind of didn't surprise me that then the attention shifted to like the whole NFT thing, which we'll probably talk about later. But like people started to truly value digital content to the point where they would put like big money down on digital art. So, you know, this is the year that we've seen a digital artist sell an artwork for $69 million. And then, you know, just last week, another one for $22 million, like out of this world.
Yeah, totally out of this world. I mean, this is a great segue because you're talking about Black Lives Matter and whatnot. And like, I want to pinpoint on two pieces that you both have in this XR showcase. With Brianna's Garden, Sutu, you have Brianna's Garden, and then Juliana, you had the Blue Boat, right? So maybe Juliana, you can talk about the Blue Boat. It was inspired by, you know, basically world healers or like essentially frontline workers, right, working in this pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very broad in scope in what you did with this piece, but I mean, you're based in Vancouver. I mean, you're Asian Canadian. You know, the rise of like, you know, like kind of Asian hate crimes, for example. I mean, Vancouver. I think Vancouver. I think statistically has the highest amount of like hate crimes against Asians. Like, you know, like it's like I think statistically, or it's really definitely up there. Can you talk about kind of what the, you know, basically you as an Asian Canadian, but also the fact that, you know, you created this piece, like what was kind of like, obviously, you know, what you were inspired by, but you maybe talk about kind of like the concept and the, you know, how you came about doing this and what is your intent to, you know, play your message in your piece.
So I guess, you know, well, a lot of people went toward the entertainment, right, business. And by the way, 10 million headsets are sold right now, which is a boon for VR and AR, which is, you know, really great opportunity for many people. I went toward a little bit more of an introspective journey because of the experiences that I went through, like during COVID. And, you know, not a lot of it was terrible, but there were a couple of incidences that gave me pause. And, you know, that made me, that forced me to grapple with my identity, the Canadian identity, colonialization, Black Matter, and all of these inclusive themes. And so, you know, I spent a lot of time actually working within AR, VR in the health field, you know, and it was looking at a lot of people were coming up to me and they had difficulties with, especially during the height of COVID, right, with depression, anxiety, like all those difficult and personal experiences that inflicted a lot of us. So in response, I dug real deep and created versions of aspirations, all of the vignettes are aspirations towards something that could help us to unite and to express ourselves in a manner that incorporates play and a little bit of empathy and a little bit more of humanism. So I purposely created like figures that were blue and Black and Hispanic and, you know, representing a diverse group of people who finally discovered their voices, not only in the political arena, you know, it was what was going on down in the United States, especially, but in their own backyards. So it was a personal journey, and one that I knew would resonate on an emotional level with a lot of people. So thanks, Sanderson, for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to add an addendum to my comment about the Vancouver statistic. I think just because Canadian government report the threshold for a hate crime is much lower than in the U.S. So I think it's like, so what classifies as a hate crime, right? So I think it's like, I mean, obviously it was constant here in the U.S. as well. I mean, even more so. But Sutu, can you talk about Brianna's garden? And it's a beautiful piece, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so Brianna's Garden is an augmented reality tribute and memorial for Brianna Taylor. And it was created in collaboration with Janiyah Palmer, who's Brianna's sister. And our director, Lady Phoenix, who's African-American artist and curator, who I've worked with over the years on a bunch of projects, she reached out to me and said, oh, look, I've been following, like the rest of the world, I've been following the Brianna Taylor case, but I've also been focusing more on Janiyah Palmer, who I've noticed through her social media, she's been experiencing all of these, hateful comments and, trying to spin a different story and a different narrative about her sister and who her sister was and all this kind of just horrible stuff. And Lady Phoenix kind of identified that as she wanted to. She reached out to Janiyah and asked if she'd be interested in collaborating on an art project where she could tell her story, and no one's going to mute her or spin it any other way. She'll have complete control, and we'll create a safe online space that won't be able to have people come in and hijack it. And this was kind of the core of the experience, was working closely with Janiyah, creating this safe space where she could tell her story and honor her sister's memory. And then it kind of grew from there as well, because just because of her spirit, really, as an incredible human being, she wanted to open up that space to others who are really struggling with grief from losing people. And I mean, like with the whole COVID thing happening, there was like a lot of people, a lot of emotions, a lot of loss in families. And so it became a bit of an experiment in online grieving, in a way that you could go into this space. And if you do download the app and activate it, I suggest that you'll find a peaceful garden or something to activate it in. I mean, we'll have it here on display.
Yeah, we have it here on display, but we also, in the Entrepreneur Sandbox, where the showcase is happening this weekend, we also have a garden across the street where Brianna's garden, you can, where that's kind of like the venue, so to speak.
And take a moment. I would suggest wearing headphones, because it does get it gets pretty personal and intimate. There's messages from Brianna's mother and a lot of close friends from the family. We reached out to them to all record messages, and they all grow on the flowers in the virtual garden. So when you move your device up to the flowers in the garden, you'll hear these powerful messages that have been left behind. But then as you explore more of the garden, you'll start to hear messages from other people. And this whole space is moderated. So whenever someone records a message, it gets sent to a back-end system that we designed. We've got a team of volunteers from a organization that's all about creating a safer internet. Whereas I teamed up with that organization, and they're incredible. They're doing TED Talks about this issue. And they're helping us to moderate all the messages that we get coming in. And we've had some really beautiful ones, just people remembering, family members that they've lost. And it becomes like, we tried to also curate that space as well. So it's not just because it can get pretty emotional, but like people are sharing beautiful memories as well. And it's sort of, and one of the interesting things that we realized early on with this is when you record a message, and it gets approved, we send an email to your account and you get sent a QR code, and that will allow you to go straight into the app and listen to that message that you've recorded. But what you can do is you can share that QR code with someone else who you might want to hear that message. Maybe you don't have the courage to say it in person, but here is an interesting vehicle where you can leave a meaningful personal message for someone in this beautiful environment that's kind of nurturing that as a concept. And we've had some really incredible feedback where people have done that. So I think it's an opportunity to explore grief in a positive way, in a healing way. So that's what it is as an experiment. And, we hope that we achieve that.
I was told that the piece won an award recently. So can you talk about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We won the Augmented World Expo Award last week.
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, it's the biggest augmented reality festival in the world. And we won it for the Social Impact Award. So, I mean, it's a great feather in the cap to the team. But, yeah, I think also what's great about these types of awards is it just helps the reach of the project because it's still it took Lady Phoenix and I a lot of conversations to get some support for the project. I think because it was a really political hot topic and it still is. A lot of people didn't want to touch it in terms of funding and stuff. And it took a while before we got some support behind it. And Microsoft ended up coming on board, and actually Microsoft funded in the experience. There is a volumetric video capture of Janaya. So she actually appears as a hologram. And it's really high quality. And this is really important because we wanted her to be the custodian of the story. We wanted you to see her and hear in her own words telling her story about her sister. And she stand next to a model of a 3D model of Brianna as she's telling her story. And her stories are so beautiful, just like them growing up as kids and the fun that they used to have. And it's really humanizing. And it's like, sadly, we didn't hear enough of those stories during like the whole case last year and all the reporting. So that's why I think it's really important, this project.
Let's talk about NFTs now.
Okay. Sure.
I mean, like, the philosophy behind NFTs. I mean, like me, I'm from the film world. I curate films for the festival. And when you look at, when you look at films as films as pieces of content, pieces of art. I mean, and they're commodity. They're part of a commodity, and they're commodity essentially. But once it goes online, it there's a risk of piracy and all that stuff. That's completely thrown out the script when it comes to what is an original piece and whatnot, and just tell what do you think this is just like a fad, or do you think this is truly a revolution?
I'm convinced it's a revolution.
Okay.
It's the first time in my career that I've seen like my digital artwork has been sold peer-to-peer and on a platform. Really, like I said before, with my comic, even though I had 300,000 people, no one was paying for the digital content.
Right, yeah.
I mean, essentially an NFT authenticates the ownership of that digital content. And it's like you've got when you create an NFT, it's registered on the blockchain.
Right.
You can see that it's passed from my crypto wallet to your crypto wallet, and now you're the authentic owner of that piece of digital content. That's really important. It seems to have kept the trust of the people that are investing in these artworks over the last year and a half. We've seen people invest a good amount of money into these digital artworks. And just because of that amount of momentum and the amount of money, like when money's in the equation, things don't just disappear. Like there's a lot of equity that has been invested into these spaces. A lot of artists have invested their artwork. They're going out on a limb there. They're putting their portfolios online and making them available for sale, and people are buying them. And I've had an interesting journey since I minted my first NFT back in December, which sold for a lot of money, and I cried and I was like, "Holy shit! Like, what the heck just happened?" It was a very crazy experience. But then, a few weeks later, we learned about the environmental impact of NFTs because they're minted on the Ethereum platform. And then I hosted a series of Clubhouse talks and Twitter spaces.
Because of the carbon footprint it's generating because of
data
mining. Yeah.
So I didn't know about it. I had a fan on Twitter who was like, "I'm not going to follow you anymore because you're minting NFTs and that's bad for the environment." I was like, "Whoa, what's he talking about? Shit, I should learn about this." So I was like, "Well, I don't know anything, so I'm going to invite the best, brainiest people I know." And I invited climate scientists and people that are running the NFT platforms and a bunch of people smarter than me. And I had a conversation and I moderated the conversation. And by the end of it, we learned that there was alternative blockchains out there that were just like as sustainable as Twitter, the equivalent of sending a tweet. Whereas like on Ethereum, it was like sending a tweet was going to create 20 kilograms of carbon pollution into the air. It was like crazy. So was like, well, shit, why are we all using Ethereum? This is ridiculous. Let's go onto one of these other blockchains. So we started an artist movement to go onto Tezos, which is one of the more reputable, sustainable blockchains out there. I highly recommend it. And we went to this really ambiguous platform called Hic et Nunc, which means here and now in Latin. Really, it looked kind of arty, I think was why we went there in the first place. It was like, it didn't look mainstream like all the other platforms. So all us artists were like, oh, we're going to go over here. And it's kind of in a pretentious way. But what we realized was that not only was it more better for the environment, it was actually a lot cheaper for artists to participate on there. So if you're going to put your artwork on an Ethereum platform, it can cost anywhere between $5 to $150 just to cover the transaction cost. And so like all our friends in the global south was like, this is bullshit. Like we can't, this is like a month's salary for some of us. So they're not going to risk that. Like it doesn't guarantee that you sell the artwork. That's just to put it on the platform.
Yeah.
So on Tezos, it was only 30 cents. So suddenly we had like a whole movement of artists from all around the world coming across. Now we've got 40,000 artists on the platform and over 500,000 artworks on the platform. And that's in a period of 6 months. And like every week I see people like, oh, this has changed my life. Not only my life, my family's life, you know, people in different countries, and they're able to pay their own way and for others. So I think there is something beautiful in that. But in knowing that as well, it kind of gives you another incentive for why you would actually want to collect other people's artworks. So I've collected more artworks in the last sort of 6 to 9 months than I have in my entire life, just because I'll be like on there and like people are supporting me, and I'll be like, you know, it's cool to adopt this mentality. Well, if I'm getting this support, then I should put back into it. And so, you know, just put a certain percentage back into every time I make some sales or whatever, I'll go and buy a ton of artworks.
Right.
And it just creates a nice sort of ecosystem where we're supporting each other. But it's cool that it creates a healthy collector culture, and everyone is starting to appreciate art on a higher level than they were before. Like, why are we collecting this artwork? It's not just because of that. It's like we're actually looking at the artwork, evaluating it, deciding why we like it. Why do we want to put money into it? You know, do we want to support this artist? And I've seen artists go from creating like one breakthrough art to creating a breakthrough art every week or every month now. And it's like awesome to see that kind of growth as well.
But that's your mindset, and I think like and there's like, you know, hundreds of thousands of you and Juliana in that mindset. But you look at like, you know, I'm just talking from like other pieces of art, like, you know, music and film, how it got basically, you know, the whole industry was like turned upside down because of the digital age, because of say Napster, because of peer-to-peer. You think you're like looking at Black Widow, you know, was released date and date and theatrically and also on Disney Plus, and it was just it was the most pirated film of the year, right? So how do you change that mindset when it comes to kind of other pieces of quote unquote art?
Well, and
the behaviors of these consumers or collectors or whatever.
Yeah, I think like in the digital space, like there's the big joke of right click, save as. Like, why would I buy the artwork? I can just right click and save as.
But that's what it is. Like, you know, like,
but you're not registered on the blockchain as the owner. And this is like a key difference. Like no one's going to buy your right click saved as artwork off you. And there's like a huge secondary market where people will buy an artwork and, you know, maybe they support an artist early on because they like realize that artist is top shit. This is one of the reasons I go in there as well.
It's collector mentality, right?
Yeah, like I'm just like, this artist is going to blow up, and I've just collected their first 10 works on this platform, and you just wait and see. I bought one artwork for $15 and sold it for like $5,000.
And you're early on the ledger. You're on ledger living on there forever, right?
Yeah, and there's a history there. I mean, the nerds follow that, but just like having the artist's works, having a good artist's work, especially when their reputation starts to go up, and like, a couple of artists, this one Italian artist who's in my book. I just released a book last week, which I brought here, and tells this whole journey of the artist movement and everything. So you can read that for yourselves later. But yeah, like I've been following his work, and I was like, this guy is just going to blow. Like he'll be in museums and stuff. You know, you just wait and see. And it's happened already within 6 months. And I'm holding on to all of his artworks. Like I'm convinced, like I'll hold on to them for a couple of years, and then maybe I'll cash in one or two if I need to. But we'll see.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Julian. I was just going to say that, like, for a very, very, very long time, digital work has always been the ugly stepsister, quote, ugly stepsister to the actual physical development and design of things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so many people would, I think a couple of years ago, I would see all my artwork taken and stolen, and you know, I'd see them on T-shirts and like in China and like Afghanistan. I'm just like, what? So I think, you know, part of part of the intrigue and the interest and the popularity of NFTs is being able to hold the rights to your work, on that blockchain. So, I mean, I have not gone in yet, but I will, and I will connect with you, Sutu, because, but yeah, I mean, I think right now there's a revolution going on, like from, in the manner in which we consume, and in the way in which we regard, like either digital art or physical art or somewhere in between.
Yeah, I think we're going to open up to the questions from the audience, from live streaming, and also from here in person. But if you have any questions, we do have one from Lee. For Sutu, based on your collaborations and experience with major film organizations, do you see a future for XR to entertain people on a large scale?
Yep.
Yes.
100%. Yeah, I think, I mean, we're already holding really powerful devices in our hands, and we're becoming pretty savvy at accessing digital content on a daily basis. So we're already there. And I think, like, it's kind of like this question, will it ever really equal like film or something like that?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of more maybe where the question is headed.
Yes.
And I mean, we've seen video games already. They were experiencing that same sort of thinking back in the 90s. But will video games reach that level of films? Well, now we're starting to see video games surpass blockbuster films and stuff like that in a shorter time frame. There's new generations that are coming up that are like what they call digital natives. They absorb content differently, and they kind of shape the future of what the world thinks is the format that we want. So I would say yes. I also, because I run a technology company as well, I'm also paying attention to like the patents that Apple are buying, for example. When they start buying up certain technologies, it's a hint towards the type of technologies they're going to be investing in the future. So Apple, for example, has been going in hard on all the lens technologies. So we do know, and there's been rumors about them coming out with the AR glasses pretty soon. And their thinking, our thinking about their thinking is that, AR glasses will become the new PC. So we won't have a PC that we open up like this on our laps or a laptop or anything like that. We put on the glasses and the PC is floating in that environment in front of us. So get rid of that hardware altogether. And so as soon as you introduce that as a new sort of concept, then it kind of shifts we're suddenly absorbing digital content on a whole new paradigm. So I think yes still is the answer to the question. Will there be some consistency in the types of experiences? I mean, Snapchat's done a really good job in making like lenses a part of our everyday Zoom calls with our families, mainly, especially if you've got kids and it's really entertaining, that sort of thing. And kids have helped push that. But just like wearing funny lenses and making like a digital overlay as a part of the communication process has been really interesting to watch. But we're talking like tens of millions of people doing that like, on a daily basis. And it's just become completely normal. You're wearing weird little interactive ears or something like that while you're having a serious conversation with your mom or whatever. It's completely normal.
And we have other questions for Juliana. Burning Man is known as a place to find new inspiration for artists, technologies, etc. What did you discover in your experience there, and what did others discover in your work? You worked on a project for Burning Man?
Yes, I did. I actually worked on a Sinisteria Awaken the Giants. That was actually hosted with my partner, Nicholas Liang. We hosted it in alt space, and it was phenomenal. Like, I mean, we didn't expect to have so many people come visit, and it really embodied like what Burning Man was all about. And so much credit to the crew of Burning Man, Athena and Doug and the person who created the world, Greg Edwards. We were able to design and take something that was like, oh my God, it was like 20 gigabytes. It was so huge, and compress it down to something like 15 megabytes. It was unbelievable. And so we were able to host worlds and gatherings and even a DJ'd event that was, I think, over 500 people came. And it was kind of interesting because we created a world that embodied the actual spirit of Burning Man, which is inclusiveness and diversity and being able to come in and express yourself in a manner that you probably wouldn't be able to do so, well, especially during COVID. So it responded to many questions. And I think a lot of people have said that the artwork, and I do artwork and the music. So both of these media pieces are really important to me in terms of creating meaningful experiences that help people to understand not only the world around them, but themselves. So there's a lot of reflecting going on. So I think the best critique that I received from that was someone came up to me and said, "You made my Burning Man. This is my Burning Man event." And it was really nice. We were very humbled.
Oh, and actually, and it's also Awaken the Giants is also part of this XR showcase as well. So it's curated as part of it. Yeah.
And there's one thing too that I just wanted to add on to what Sutu was talking about, that a lot of the people who grew up playing like Club Penguin, you know, like they don their avatars and they choose whatever they want it to be, and they enter these virtual worlds, Second Life and so forth. You know, they grew up and they created these incredible multiverses, metaverses right now, like Roblox, right? I mean, look at that. That has become like a multi-million. It's become so successful, not just for the people who created them, but for the audience, which is predominantly children, right? Or young adults too, I think. And you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's me. But yeah, I mean, that sort of mentality and the ability to do something and to create something that kind of came from a game, that experiences as a game and that experience as a social VR platform, I think is going to lead and has led to the rise of XR experiences.
Do we have any questions from the audience in person here? Oh, please go ahead. I'm going to repeat the question. So basically, you're asking, was the breakthrough point for artists, like metrics to? The paradigm, like the breakthrough for NFT. I guess, like, what is the measurement for a breakthrough for NFT an artist when it comes to NFTs, and is it through the amount of NFTs they sell or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, when I mentioned that before, I was thinking aesthetically. I was like, you know, from my point of view, I was like, I could see that this person has. I think what happens when you sell an artwork, it's like you kind of take yourself a little bit more seriously, and every time you think about the next one in the amount of effort that you're going to put into it, how you're going to present it. I know that I did that every single week. I was putting up my NFTs, and that was kind of what I was starting to see with a lot of artists. I was like, wow, you really took that one to the next level, you know, and we'd be having conversations about the artwork and the aesthetics, and also technical conversations like, how the hell did you do that? And then artists themselves like saying like, oh, this is easily the best piece of work that I've ever made, like, you know, and being super proud of it. That's definitely a metric when it's more, and obviously art is so subjective, so it's harder to you know, pinpoint it, and everyone will have a different opinion about what artist's work is their best and that sort of thing. And other metrics are when the work is actually selling, and how many pieces of the work are selling. Because you could sell a one of one, but you could also do editions, where you might do like the same in the traditional world, where you do prints of an artwork. So maybe you do a limited edition of 25 prints, and that's all that will be made. You can do that with digital NFTs as well. And just on that, like when you do editions, it means you can make your artwork more accessible to more people, which again adds to that economic accessibility of this whole sort of space. But yeah, when artists will put work up there and it might take a while for it to move, and then they finally sell out, and they're like, oh, finally, you know, I've sold a collection of my work and I'm so proud, and that sort of thing. And it gives them that confidence to reinvest, where other artists, they might not sell out of their work, or they might not even sell their work for some time, and they lose that confidence. And so I think this is also where that kind of the community spirit comes into it. So on the platform, there was there was a lot of really cool initiatives to bring visibility to artists who didn't have a huge following on Twitter or whatever it was, or whatever social media platform, of just to create visibility during certain periods. So we'd do like an event called Object for Object, where you swap an artwork for someone else's artwork. Or you might just mint, 500 copies of your artwork for free, and you put the hashtag Object for Object on there, and people will start just searching the hashtag, and it's not biased to anyone. It's just going to show whatever is the latest listing. So you discover so many artworks, and that's a time when people become collectors, because they can pick up an artwork for like $3 or $6 or $10, that sort of thing. And people will proudly say, wow, I collected 20 artworks today from people from, South America, Southeast Asia, from all of these different places. And it's like really awesome to see that kind of culture sort of thriving as well, and that's another metric. A lot of people will say, I'm the first artist from this area on this platform, and I've sold my work. And, there's a lot of pride in just the local community as well as that sort of global internet community.
What's funny is like you think the engineers or the founders of Instagram are like damn it, like you can't share links, right? And that's like, and then that's why Twitter is such a great platform for for NFTs and whatnot, right?
Yeah, I'm really surprised they haven't updated it. But also coming to think about that, the platform engineers that are behind the scenes, like the platform that we all migrated to was founded by a social scientist from Brazil, and and he had an interesting idea because Brazil was going through like economic turmoil and that sort of thing.
Right.
And he studied the blockchain as an idea of decentralized finance. So, where a lot of distrust for the banks and the institutions was happening, he saw that as an opportunity to create a platform on a decentralized finance blockchain. And he of all the platforms out there, and one of the reasons that we decided as a artist community to migrate to his platform was because he presented this ethos so elegantly in one of my Twitter spaces. And that was like the turning point for me. I was like, dude, I'm sold. I'm coming to your platform. Like you presented. It also opened my eyes up to the economic accessibility of supporting these artists in different countries, and why that was so important. It wasn't all about the environment. And then these other initiatives, like actually just swapping artwork and having that sort of like, it felt like whilst like if like all that was happening on the Ethereum blockchains was like the pop music scene, then this was kind of like the indie punk scene that we were starting to create on this other blockchain and platform.
So, I mean, we're going to wrap things up here. All right, Juliana, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to actually comment too on the metric side of things, that
yes,
like if you don't sell something as well too, it doesn't mean that your artwork is not relevant, or that it's not meaningful, or that it doesn't capture the audience that you want to. It's so much of selling NFTs has to do with actually promoting it and being available. And I mean, how much time do you have? Like some people have teams, some people don't, that sort of thing. And also it's all about accessibility too. I mean, there are some groups that seem to have a lot more access to, marketing and so forth, or connecting, and that, there are, maybe there are some people who, from different countries and so forth, that could probably even benefit from a little bit more help from, other groups. So your work is not indicative of a success or a failure. Your work is your work. I just wanted to let you know.
I mean, my final question is actually, as the NFT world and its ecosystem matures, how do you? Because the concept and the philosophy of NFTs it's coming from a pure place, a very punk rock place. How do you thwart against the carpetbaggers or the corporations and whatnot from really kind of like screwing this all up and just really kind of like making it just all about the money?
I don't know. I think there's like, whenever there's money involved, there's people will find ways to exploit it and try to get in there to make it. And even like within this whole, like what you said, like there's a decentralized concept driving it, but then very quickly you start to see when things become centralized, and it becomes centralized in the thinking within the little elite groups within, like in some platforms you have to the platform that we're on, anyone can be on it. But in other platforms, you have to send in your whole portfolio. It gets assessed by people. There's people making decisions whether you're worthy or not to be on there.
Brokers and all that stuff.
Yeah, all of this stuff. So all of these systems that we try to get away from in the traditional world that we don't like about it, they're reappearing, they're re-emerging. The same old tricks are at work. It's just like we've got to remain vigilant and keep on reinventing our own approach. And we can do it within our communities and try to set a good ethos within those communities, and that can grow, and maybe that can become the approach that other communities can adopt, and then we can hold those people that come in. We can make them take responsibility. So there was an example. Are we got to wrap it up? Or?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. There was an example literally like last week where the founder of Hikait Nunk, the platform that we're on, he was getting tired of this digital colonialism was the phrase that he used, and it's this term where when things are on the blockchain, it's like the platform itself is just an interface, and you can put it up on the blockchain, but the actual content itself is available from the blockchain, and then people can create another website, their own website, to host all that content. So what was happening is, I'm ready to call it quits, guys, because everyone's taking all my ideas anyway and creating these mirror sites of his platform. And there were literally like 6 of them emerged. And what happens is they begin on his contract and they say, hey, we're a slightly alternative version to Raphael's. Raphael's the founder of Hikait Nunk. But we've added these extra features because Raphael's been taking ages to add them, and he should just do it because we want it as a community. And then like... So they go and do it, and people go, "Oh, that's great! I want that feature so bad." And they'll put their artwork up on that new platform, and it will be minting on it'll be on that platform under Raphael's contract for a little while until the platform goes and introduces their own contract, and therefore the very tiny commission that was going back to Raphael's platform, 2.5%, which is the smallest of any platform at the time, is suddenly not going to him anymore. And it was just like a vulture pirate kind of lifestyle of people going, hey, we're here for the community. We're doing a community service by like creating these features on exactly the same platform. And I was like, wow, you're even using his logo. Like, this is crazy. I was like, I called it out on a conversation. I was just like, holy shit. Like, the guy still has IP. Just because it's decentralized doesn't mean you can steal his freaking identity. Like, it's crazy. There's like a lot of like, this thinking is just off the charts, and I'm still trying to grapple with that. Like, it's very fresh in my mind. It was literally like last week. I'm like, holy shit! Like, how do we actually stop that? And like the 6 other platforms are still up and running, and it's like, okay, they can continue, but we have to figure out how to hold them accountable. And now the community is going, should we trust those other ones? I'm like, I wouldn't. I would trust the one that Raphael's endorsed. So if you're really a part of the community, so. And then it's like a big sort of rebuilding the trust again sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting paradigm.
Before I bring back Nina for some closing remarks, Juliana, you can have the last word here. What is your thing about like, how do you thwart? Yeah.
Sorry, what on NFTs and so forth?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do you thwart kind of like, the appropriation of this,
It's exciting. Idea. Are you kidding me? It's like the best thing ever. It's Sutu is on he's I'm listening to with bated breath because it's the first time actually that artists are able to have some sort of power and ownership over what they do and how they're building and how they're perceived, and that's about time. It's been in the hands of so many other people, and I think that when you are able to, I mean, for right now, there's a problem with, and it has been going on for a long time. People would ask artists, most especially, would never ask doctors or salespeople, "Hey, can you do it for me for free?" Or I don't want to pay you, or I'll pay you like maybe a percentage of what you really should have. And that's been going on for far too long. And I think NFTs legitimizes the work and the backgrounds, the heritage, the cultures of many people who deserve to have their work recognized as well. So I think it's a very powerful vehicle, and I can't wait to start. And it's, I've waited a little bit longer too, because I did not want my sense of success or somewhat tied to the sales, and you can easily get down that rabbit hole. And so developing a voice, for yourself, for the community, for the people, and figuring out what you want to say through your artwork, whether or not it's going to be as meaningful as you need it to be, I think that's really important, because you will eventually, and we will, it's human nature, we will get to a point where we'll start to chase the rabbit, and when you start chasing the rabbit, at some point you might endanger or I think start to lose why you're doing it in the first place. And that's my thoughts.
That's great. I mean, like, in the end of the day, it's like, artists know your worth. There's a value to all your work, especially digital artists. So, I mean, let's give another round of applause to Sutu and Juliana for being here.
Hey, thanks.
And then virtually, sorry. And then Nina, I invite Nina again to say some closing remarks.
Thank you. Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Sutu, Juliana. It's been awesome to listen to you both and continue to learn from you both and be inspired. Just to wrap things up to our virtual audience, thank you again so much for joining us. And please do, if you are on island, please do come out to our VR exhibit, XR exhibit at Sandbox, Entrepreneur Sandbox here in Kaka'ako. Just visit our website and you can sign up for a VR session. So thank you.
Can I add one thing you told me to say? If you are interested in the whole NFT thing, we are releasing a free curriculum at artshelp.net, and there's a course there, and that once you finish the course, you'll also be eligible for grants. There will be 200 plus grants up to $3.5 million, and it's open to anyone in the world.
Woo!
So free education on NFTs and access to make some art with grant money, real grant money.
That's great. I also want to recognize for the XR showcase, I also recognize local artist Taiji Terasaki, who's in the audience right now. And he has some pieces, not only at the Bishop Museum, but also the Entrepreneur Sandbox, and they're incredible.
No worries. I still have stuff to say. I was just wrapping it up for the live stream. So thank you all for joining us virtually.
Hey.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Juliana.
Bye.